Hi, everyone. Welcome to the MSBA Student Capstone panel. It's nice to see some familiar faces on here. It's nice to have you all stay engaged. My name is Laudan Mazdiasna, and I am the Assistant Director for the full-time MBA in the MSBA program. I work primarily with our MSBA, specifically our double dog. So again, if we've worked together, we've met, we've emailed back and forth. It's nice for you to be here. I know this was it was actually an in-person session, but we decided to pivot to virtual. Seems a little bit easier. And so I'm joined by four of my wonderful MSBA students, and I will have them introduce themselves, and then we'll kind of just go round robin. I've got some questions regarding the capstone project, which does occur in your spring semester of the MSBA program, and they're all team leads. So they'll talk about what it means to be a team lead and all that good stuff. So I'll pass it over to Alessandra.
Hey guys, I'm Alessandra. I was a marketing major here at UGA, and I was an accounting intern for a firm called Equity Estates.
Hey guys, my name is Tasia. I was an MIS undergrad at UGA and I interned at a community bank called Bank South and I was an RPA intern.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael DePietro. I am currently a double dog with both getting my finance undergrad and then the MSBA. My internship experience is more in the small business sector. I've worked for a small audio video company for the past 4 years, and I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah. Hey everyone, my name is Gleb Likver. Like Michael, I'm also a Double Dogs Finance and MSBA. And my experience isn't really an internship. I've always really been self-employed, and so I've been running my own data consulting firm, and that was kind of my experience before and through the program.
Awesome. Thank you. So we'll have a Q&A at the very end of the session. Basically, you could type your questions in the chat. So listen for kind of the questions, and maybe one of your questions is going to get asked. But then if you still have questions, we'll have a little bit of time for a Q&A for our students. So let's get started. All right. So we're going to start with kind of what it means to you all to be a team lead. So really, what does being a team lead in the MSBA capstone actually look like from day to day? And really, what were the biggest adjustments that you had to make when stepping into that role?
Stepping into the team lead role was probably the heaviest portion of the semester because it's figuring out your teammates' schedules, figuring out your clients' schedules, and getting everyone to agree on a weekly or bi-weekly date and time to be able to meet and talk about, what needs to be done for the project, the progress for the project, and any issues that you're facing. But after that initial maybe 2 or 3 weeks of fumbling around with that, for me at least, everything has been pretty smooth sailing. I got lucky with a great team, so it hasn't been too difficult. It's just doing the project.
I can take off from there as well. For me, a lot of what Tasia said was also true. There was a big, I guess you could say, learning curve initially, because as the team lead, what you're expected to do is you're expected to be the primary point of contact for your client, as well as you're supposed to manage all of the administrative work with regard to scheduling and meeting times, running meetings, all that stuff. We have to prep weekly progress reports, all those kinds of things. And that falls on the team lead. That sounds like a lot, but after a while, it becomes pretty formulaic and you can knock it all out within no more than I would say an hour
Mhm.
of additional time each week. But yeah, I'd say kind of the big learning curve, if you will, was just getting not only into a position of kind of authority over people that are your peers and basically getting them to coordinate with you, but also just kind of managing them. And that took some learning at first, but it becomes a lot easier as you go through the semester.
I'll
Absolutely.
say,
Sorry, you can go.
go for Alessandra.
Okay. I was just going to say another thing that took a little bit of adjusting on my end was also delegating work and just holding everyone accountable to really strict deadlines. In like this project, I would definitely say time is your biggest constraint just because there are really harsh deadlines. And also, like Mike was saying, assuming that position of power, I think all of us are so used to being on just the receiving side of information. So not really running meetings and just being a receiver of information. So kind of taking a seat in the driver's just taking a seat, yeah, in the driver's seat of the car and just, like, running meetings with, like, just people that are twice your age is just it's a really fun experience, but is very different and definitely a little bit of a learning curve.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Really, just bouncing off that, it's such an integral part of being a team lead is being able to manage the people that you're with, but both managing your, I want to say employees. They're not your employees, right? They're your teammates, but also you have to manage as a team lead the company or your client that you're working with, right? They need to be told what to do and how to get from it. You got to be comfortable as a team lead saying, "You need to give this to me," or "It's your fault that this isn't happening." Right? Being able to actually go up to the client and understand stakeholder management is probably the biggest change that I personally saw going in and stepping into the role of a team lead.
Great. Thank you. Can I ask a quick follow-up question? Like, how did you all like, did you volunteer for to be a team lead or were you just asked to be a team lead? Like, how did you become a team lead?
Everybody's picked. We all just got an email
Yeah.
that said,
Wow.
"Congrats here, team lead."
I
Okay.
do
All right.
know
So,
I do know, at least for my sake, I did reach out because I wanted this experience for myself to just boost the resume, but as well as I enjoy leadership positions personally. So I do know that I reached out to G1 Park and asked him. I sent him my resume and just went, "Hey, I'm interested in being a team lead," and I got lucky enough to be picked.
very nice. Great. Thank you all. So, in a program where everyone comes from different technical and professional backgrounds, different majors, different internship experience. How do you balance team strengths and really making sure everyone contributes in a really meaningful way? Because we know anything in a group, you can someone sometimes always have someone who isn't pulling their weight or doing what they need to do. So as team leads, how are you holding people accountable?
I personally think that it's less about holding individuals accountable and more about being able to delegate. It's that the fact that people have different technical and professional backgrounds is one of the greatest gifts that we are given as team leads. I've got people on my team that are better at database architecture and other people that are better at programming in Python. So perfect, right? The people that are better at working in database architecture do that. The people that work in Python do that. As a team lead, I give my team a lot of ownership. I say, you guys have the authority to make decisions, right? I want you to make decisions. I want you to be able to justify the decisions you make, right? So if I say you have to design the architecture for this, you do what you need to do as long as you can justify it to me. And that I found gets people to actually do their work. And you don't have to worry about is everybody pulling their own weight because people are doing what they're good at, things that they like doing anyway.
Yeah, I to build off of that, I came into this. I've been fortunate enough to be kind of in the shadow of some leaders and throughout my life. So a very big, I guess, mantra that I learned early on and I applied to Gleb's point was delegate and elevate. So basically what we do as team leads very early on is we have to have conversations with every member on our team, figure out what they like, what their strengths are, and frankly what their weaknesses are, things that they want to learn, and then we put them in the positions to be able to do that. When we do that, that not only allows the team to work independently, so I don't need to micromanage them and make sure they're doing what they're doing or what they need to be doing, but it also just lets them kind of gauge a little bit of their own free reign, if you will, at the start of the project so that they're ultimately working on what they want to be doing, which really helped me with regard to segmenting my team out to tackle two simultaneous tasks at the same time, two separate tasks that are going to come together at the end of my project for the final output, I guess you could say. But it also just helped to, like Gleb was saying, it gave them the authority to make these decisions, to do the research, and then come back to me and tell me, hey, I found this great thing. And then I basically just have to go, oh, that's awesome. Run with it and let me see what you can do.
Yes, for me also, I try to implement other project management practices. So what I try to do in my group is kind of implement kind of what it's almost like a proxy of a sprint almost. So when we have like these deliverables and you're giving everyone their different sub deliverable, it can still seem a little bit overwhelming and difficult to digest. And I know for some, just like other individuals, when you give them just so much to do, they'll just get overwhelmed. And that can sometimes lead into procrastination and it's just more difficult to get deadlines and to get all the deliverables done. So what I've done is you kind of just break them break it apart into little sub processes and say, hey, here's everyone's task. This should, and give them like a time range for like most of mine. I'm like, this should not take you more than 2 hours. So block out 2 hours in your calendar just to get this done. So then it's like every couple weeks, they just have to get that 2 week sprint done. So then it's just a little bit more of a manageable way to also like get the full deliverable done without having to micromanage and check in all the time because you already have those built-in check-in points with your team.
Yeah, a lot of honestly, I agree with everything that you three just said. I feel like mine is a combination of all of that. I feel like something that I found very important is also understanding what your team's workload already is, because at the end of the day, we're all students and this is a part of our coursework. So we have other classes, we have other exams to study for. So taking that into consideration when I'm delegating tasks and whatnot has proven to be very helpful. My team definitely appreciates it. And of course, it takes some pressure off of me as well because we're all MSBA students. Everybody knows what the exam schedule is, the assignment schedule is, working around that and making sure that people aren't getting too stressed out because it's not that serious at the end of the day. We're all doing this because we like what we do and we're all doing it for the experience. Making sure that it's actually an enjoyable process and people are getting value out of it is something that I try to prioritize.
Awesome. Thank you. So, as much as you're allowed to share, I know there are limitations on how much you can share. Can you walk us through just high level your capstone project, kind of what problem you're solving, if you can share that? If you can even just share what company you're working with, what tools you're using, and really, anything in terms of kind of the problem that you're solving, as much as you're allowed to share, though.
Ooh, I feel so fancy with the NDAs.
No, right?
My team, huh?
I know. It's just so secretive.
So top secret. My team is working with Synovis. We are building a medallion architecture in Databricks. So taking raw code through different layers for usability purposes. And at the end of it, we're building a dashboard and presenting it to them. Very classic data analytics project.
I can take off from here. My team and I, we're working with NCR Voyix. Basically, at a very high level, what our project is we are also working in Databricks, and we are just taking extremely messy data. We're cleaning it up, we're standardizing it, and then because it's transaction data, what NCR wants is basically a master taxonomy of these items that they can then apply to the rest of their data set. Because theirs is massive, we're working with a very small subset. So we're completing a whole process for this, and we hope to present a final master taxonomy at the end of the semester, in addition to a cleanup process and a standardization process.
So my team and I were working with Assurant. So for you guys who might not know, Assurant is a Fortune 500 insurance company. And so we're helping them tackle and rework their accounting process flow for mobile billing specifically. So essentially what we're doing is we're documenting their current accounting process flow, and then we're documenting their workflows specifically within the platform Alteryx. That's a commonly used accounting platform analytics tool. And then we're at the end, we're going to create a proof of concept where we're going to try to implement different agentic AI tools to help streamline and rework this process and eliminate all bottlenecks and bugs that are currently in this accounting process.
And for us, we're actually working with the University of Georgia School of Medicine that's being recently established. And so, we've been tasked with just building their entire data architecture, their whole everything. We're using Microsoft Fabric, working on admissions pipelines. They're out there saying, "Hey, Gleb, work on formulas to determine who gets in and who doesn't get in." And we're like, "Oh, hold on, right?" Like being able to filter off admissions, curriculum, and tracking students throughout everything.
Great, thank you. So a wide range of different kind of organizations, companies that you're working with. All right, all good stuff. Let's talk a little bit about really how you balance work, school, life. How would you describe the rigor of the MSBA program, and how do you balance the coursework, the capstone, and just, of course, finding a job and having a social life, because that's also really important.
Well, I'll start us off here. In truth, I thought that going into the MSBA program, it was going to be very daunting, as I'm sure some of you guys might think. While the coursework is challenging and there are some classes that are harder than others, the step up from your undergrad classes isn't as extreme as you might think. So you will still have a full course load. It will still take a decent chunk of your time, but it's not as overwhelming as you might believe it to be. For example, we had one class, our machine learning class, where the material was very hard, but the way that he would test on the material was actually fairly straightforward. So it allows for more free time than you might think, which really helps when you're trying to go into a job search and now here in the spring go into Capstone. Additionally, the MSBA program, and this outside of like these three people I'm very good friends with and I've made great friends. The other thing that I really value about this program is they're extremely AI forward. They don't want you to use AI to cheat on your test, clearly, but what they do highly encourage in almost all of your classes is to use AI as an assistant to help expedite some of the more, let's call it monotonous tasks that you have to do, which also helps save you a decent chunk of time. And I really did appreciate learning quite a bit about AI right at the start from certain classes like our MIST 7770. I forget the name of the class. Maybe one of you guys can help me out. But learning that kind of stuff really did help to balance that stuff. And I'll get off my soapbox, but the last thing I'll say is having a calendar, like I'm sure a lot of us have or have had in our undergrad, is also extremely helpful in managing everything.
Right. Yeah, MIST 7770, I'm pretty sure it was business, intelligence taught by Dr. Rios, I wanna
Yes.
say. But yeah,
Yes.
AI was definitely useful in that class. But going off of that, I would definitely take advantage of fall recruiting for jobs if possible because our capstone is only in the spring. So in the fall, since you don't have that capstone, which does take up a good bit of time, you are open. Do you just have more time available to go recruit and go network? And also for different business sectors, like I know consulting and finance specifically, they're definitely more fall heavy recruiting versus I know like from what at least what friends have told me, like CPG and other companies tend to hire more in the spring. But just knowing what your target sector is and really trying to prioritize that recruiting cycle and also just go network and do coffee chats just to hopefully try to ease some of that stress off. And I can say for myself, I know that a lot of kids coming into this program already have some pre existing credits. So their course load isn't as heavy. I came in with no credits, so I was taking like 18 credit hours in the fall and 15 now in the spring, where it's definitely a full course load. But like Michael was saying, it's nothing too different from undergrad. And also, I'm sure that a lot of you guys are also double dogs, so everyone's kind of used to taking a full course load, but it's not too bad once you really balance things out. And also, what's really great is you do have a whole cohort of students all going through the same classes with you at the same time. So you do have that built in community already there. And you have like already a bunch of like study groups and just a bunch of like assets and tools that you get to use. And we also have the grad commons, which is just a great place for everyone to get together and study and just bang out any projects or any assignments that we're working on too.
I work full time, right? To bounce out, I work full time. I have a full time job plus doing capstone plus MSBA classes. It's really not that. Sure, it's a master's program, right? You're going into a master's program, so you're gonna have to work as if you would on a master's. Don't go out on Thursday. Finish a project, right? Priorities and responsibilities. But a very beautiful aspect of the MSBA is that we get Fridays off, and having that 3-day weekend does a lot. I noticed that the best thing is to separate and physically separate home from school from work, right? When you go home, that's only for home, right? You don't bring school work, you don't bring projects home. If you need to work on a project, I stay at Terry, I work on it until it gets done. Then I go home. But when you keep that physical separation, those barriers, you become more efficient at doing the work that you do yourself. And it just helps with balance overall.
Yeah, my situation was a little different. I was an MIS undergrad. I did the like double dogs program, but I didn't do it in 4. I'm taking in my 5th. So I had some credits coming in, but the way that my schedule was going to work out for the fall, it didn't leave me enough open time or chunks of time between classes to actually be productive. So I just filled it in with more classes. So where I only needed to take 12 credits or 15 credits, I took 18 and worked part time and just kind of tried to do everything my fall semester because I found that I work best and I'm most productive when I'm under a lot of pressure. Not very healthy, but it works. So that was my fall experience, and because of that, my spring semester is now incredibly chill. I take 9 credits, and 3 of them are this capstone. So, it really depends the experience that you wanna give yourself throughout the program. If you want something more balanced and things like that, you can make that happen. If you wanna fully go, like, pedal to the metal your first semester and then have an incredibly light second semester, you can make that happen as well. It all just depends how you work best and how you feel the most productive and how you think you're gonna get the most success out of the program.
Thank you. All right, let's pivot a little bit to kind of talking about the market. Obviously, finding a job, the market is ever so changing
Ah,
with kind of all that. Do you feel like the MSBA program and really the capstone experience has prepared you for the kinds of problems that you'll face in industry and in what ways?
Yeah. Sorry.
no, you got
Um,
it.
You got it.
um, no, absolutely. I think that when you're going through undergrad and you're trying to find a job, you always hear like, "Hey, reach out to people on LinkedIn, try to set up coffee chats." And, like speaking from personal experience, I would try to do that. I wouldn't get as many responses. Whereas now, when I reach out to people on LinkedIn saying, "Hey, my name is Tasia, I'm in the MSBA program," I've gotten a lot more successful coffee chats out of that. And one of them actually led to my future job. So I found that MSBA was very helpful, just at least for namesake in the market. Of course, the skills are very transferable as well. Being able to do this capstone gave us a lot of real world experience that you wouldn't otherwise get unless you did, an internship or you worked part time for a company, or like Gleb, you're a full on entrepreneur, which I don't know how he does it, but he does somehow.
Thanks, Dave. I'll say recruiting wise, in terms of recruiting out of the MSBA, the brand name associated with the MSBA is very powerful, right? And the events that the MSBA does are really the bread and butter, right? Everything is what you make out of it. Every opportunity is how you use the opportunity. The MSBA does a plethora of events with alumni, with companies, with Terry Board. You know, some people go to those events and just kind of stand around, don't communicate, don't socialize. Some people go to those events and just power slam companies, right? And those people get jobs. So it's a question of recruiting wise, what are you going to do? A lot of people are bringing out like, oh, AI age and AI is automating this. What I say, it's the exact opposite. Because of our program and how AI forward it is, right? In a lot of my classes, I never had to really use like Claude Code or whatever, right? I set that stuff up throughout this program and I learned how to set that up in agentic management. And that is something that I will actively be using for the rest of my career. And the fact that you learn this now and you learn how to do this before everyone else does, well, I mean, come on, right? Talk about positioning yourself. When you know how to do something before everybody else knows how to do it, you're suddenly more valuable than everybody else, right? That's where the value in this program comes in from the true development and the way that it ebbs and flows, at least from my personal experience.
Yeah, going
Yeah.
off oh, sorry,
Oh,
you can go,
oh, go
Michael.
ahead, Alessandra. After you.
So, going off of what Gleb was saying, the MSBA is definitely a great brand signaler because we are pioneers in really implementing AI and agentic technologies into our everyday work. And just like the brand signaling as well, it allowed me to enter into a job and company where I wasn't a target undergrad major for. So it allowed me to pivot and be able to get a job that's more online or more in line with what my future career goals are without being that perfect cookie cutter target major, which was really nice. And also, the MSBA does give you so many transferable skills to enter into a plethora of different industries because we have so many different professors who work in a bunch of different industries and they have so much market knowledge. I know, like last semester, we had our causal inference teacher who her name's Ailey, and she was really awesome. And she has such great healthcare market knowledge. And then one of my professors this semester, he is really big on and has a massive sales background. So you just have all of these different just skill sets and just also professors to tap into as well, just to figure out also to hone in on what you may want to do and how you might want to shape your future and career.
Yeah, I fully agree with what basically everybody here has been saying. I mean, it's the age-old thing of, and I'm sure everybody here has heard this like 100 times, but this program is you'll get out of it what you put into it. So, like Gleb was saying, this program in the classes that you will take, in the events that they schedule, and they send out a massive email every single week with a bunch of events that you can go to for MBA and then MSBA specific as well. And all the other things, career connections, the career center for just the MBAs and the MSBAs is fantastic. All these things, if you actually apply yourself to this, you're going to get a lot out of it. And I fully agree with what Gleb was saying about AI as well. A lot of people are talking about how jobs for people like us coming out of college, a lot of these entry level jobs are going to be subsumed by AI. I'm actually with Gleb in basically the exact opposite camp for the moment. What AI is, and what you'll learn in this program, is it's going to be a tool to help expedite and basically enrich your skills in your position. So if you learn to use it as an assistant or as a companion or a compatriot, if you will, it's going to help you advance. And this program does do a great job at trying to put you on the cutting edge of that, which, I mean, when I had my interview, I literally had a direct conversation about AI because I put it on my resume. Like it is that prevalent. So being able to say, hey, I'm not only do I know like AI exists, but I'm dangerous with it. Like I know things that a lot of people might not know is a really good thing. But outside of that, just getting the skills, going to the events, doing the networking and that kind of thing, which are all things that this program really tries to harp on in classes and with the events that they will schedule for you, you're going to get a lot out of it. But you do have to put in the effort for sure.
Thank you all. All right.
Dangerous with AI. I
There
like it.
you go. That's for your tagline. There you go.
It's going on my resume too, Michael. I'm stealing that.
Right?
Oh,
That's like a
thanks.
skill. That's a
I'm glad I
skill.
could have.
So let's kind of pivot back to the capstone. So, what's one challenge you faced as a team lead during the capstone, and what did you learn from that experience?
I guess I can start. It's definitely against my nature to push back against a client just because I'm someone personally who really loves to say yes and like the idea of not being able to deliver on something and like it's just I don't know, it's against my just personal conviction. But I realized it's better to underpromise and overdeliver than vice versa. And also it takes the stress off of your team. And as a team lead, you are there also to be a lead for your team and to make sure that they're in the best position possible to do their work. Also, you want to be able to deliver what you're promising to the client instead of delivering something that's sloppy and just halfway done and it's going to run into so many other roadblocks. But definitely it was a hard process because at least for our project we had to narrow down our scope and then we also had to redefine a lot of our deliverables in the beginning of the project, and that can sometimes be difficult when facing client pushback. But understanding that you're not just like, I don't know if fighting is the right word, but you're not just like fighting for like yourself, it's also for your team as well and like everyone's well-being and just for the project's well-being as a whole. So I think understanding it and approaching it from that perspective really helped me push back a little bit.
Man, spot on there. You got to manage client expectation. We had our point of contact reaching out to the client, promising that we were going to do things that I was never consulted on. And so then I'm saying, like, wait a minute, you're telling him we're going to do this? Absolutely not. We didn't talk about this. And it's a challenge, right? Because a lot of the clients forget that you're college students. They forget that you have time requirements. They forget that, you have other things to do, right? That this isn't your full-time job, and you got to push back. You got to be able to stand your ground.
Yeah, I fully agree with that as well. I'm going to try and deviate a little bit so that there's because my experience was slightly different. Definitely client management and client expectations was a challenge to kind of wrap your head around for the reasons that Gleb was outlining. They can very quickly lose sight of the fact that you are a student, you have a deadline that is the end of your semester, and you only have so much time in a week because you have all of this other stuff. You're not just a consultant as they might view you. So being able to basically communicate that to them in a way that's firm but fair, if you will, so that they don't feel like you're strong arming them. But it's also like, hey, we can only do so much was a very big thing. The other thing that I kind of struggled with in the beginning is as a team lead specifically, you're basically at the top of the pyramid. What that means is you're managing your team, you're managing your client, and you're managing your professors who are asking you all of these questions in what would be a additional hour-long meeting on Fridays that all the team leads have to go to. So you're basically the bottleneck for your entire project. That sounds daunting at first, but once you kind of get past the initial hurdle, if you will, it becomes a little easier to manage in that you get really kind of synergized with your team in the ways that we talked about through delegation and target priority and all that kinds of stuff. And then you get really kind of in sync with your professors and your faculty advisors. And then you can basically every week when you have your meeting with your client go, hey, yeah, things are going well. Or you can go, things aren't going so well, but here's why. And unless you're in the red, as Professor Trotter would put it, here's how we can fix it. So being able to get to that point was definitely a challenge for me at first because I'm kind of like Alessandro where it's like I want to be the yes man, I want to make you happy, but the ultimate goal is to deliver something quality, not to make your client happy. So you have to be willing to push back and take the responsibility on from all of these different people that are kind of looking to you to take care of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. All of those things are very valid. One thing that I faced with my team is all of our schedules were very conflicting. We could hardly find a time that worked. So we meet Tuesdays from 4:30 to 5:30, which nobody wants to meet after class. Nobody wants to meet after class. I don't want to meet after class. And then we meet Fridays with our client from 2 to 3. And so, given that the MSBA leaves us a free Friday, I hated the fact that I had to put a meeting on not just my calendar, but my team's calendar as well. So, setting up a schedule like that, it felt very against my nature because I want to make things convenient for people. I want to make it as easy as possible for them to, come to the meetings, do their job, and get this project done, but just didn't have a choice. So there's a lot of apologizing on those initial meetings. I'll tell you that much. One other thing is this is incredibly trivial. And I realized after like 2 weeks that it doesn't matter, but my team is all girls. So one thing that I was very nervous about going into, just handling that situation is making sure that I didn't seem like the bad guy for not being able to use other language, but making sure that okay, everybody feels equal, everybody feels valued, and it's not just okay, I'm the boss because I'm a guy. I was put here, I had no say in this. Please let's just all be friends.
Great. That's important too. Thank you. All right, we're going to do our last question. So, for prospective students, who there are a lot on this call, um, what would you recommend they do before starting the program in order to just set themselves up for success?
Learn how Claude Code works. As somebody, right, that I've got my fingers on the pulse here, right? I work. I know AI is not going to replace software engineering roles, right? And AI is not going to replace our jobs, but you have to know how to use it and have how to manage it. That's my bit. Now, like the project, you can't just like Claude your project, right? You can't do that,
No.
right? And for a lot of your homework assignments, you won't be able to just get it done by AI or whatever. But you have to understand how these agents work. What are MCPs? If you don't know what MCPs are, go learn them. If you don't know what skills are, go learn them. Because in just the past few months, we went from AI being to Codex developing Codex, right? To AI developing itself. And so think of what's going to happen by the time that y'all are entering the program come August. What's going to change in just those short months? You want to be positioned first and you want to be knowing how this stuff is working and how it's changing. None of my clients care if I can write Python. None of them care if I write 1,000 lines of Python code by hand or if I have a computer do it for me. As long as it works and it gives the output that they're paying me for, that's all that matters. And you're going to realize when you go into jobs and when you're recruiting, it's the same thing, right? Your boss isn't paying for you to sit in a seat from 9 to 5. They care about you getting your stuff done.
Yeah, I fully agree with what Gleb's saying. with regard to this being a more tech-based program, learning AI as an assistant first and 100% learning Claude Code is extremely valuable for, I would argue, anything, not just the MSBA. I cannot encourage that enough, learning that. I was behind the eight ball. I'm learning it now, and the stuff it can do is just ridiculously powerful. Outside of that, for me specifically, my advisor was great. Jill Hopkins, if any of you guys have her, congrats. She's phenomenal. She encouraged me when I decided that this is the program I wanted to pursue to add the business analytics area of emphasis to my, I guess, degree, if you will, which opened me up to be able to take some of these classes before you got into the MSBA. That frees up your time once you're in the program, but it also gives you a taste of what the program's about before you get into it. So not only does that gear you for success, but it also can help, quote unquote, weed out, if you will, if you want to do it or not, which I hope everybody on this call does. I cannot encourage it enough. I think this program's been fantastic for a ton of different reasons, but it can help you just determine if this is truly what's right for you, in addition to teaching you some skills that I think are valuable no matter if you do this program or not, work in this field or not. Like like we've been saying. So I definitely would encourage you guys, if you can, add that to your, I guess, degree works. I forget exactly how it was done, but that will help you out and set you up. And also, one final note, if you're not comfortable with networking, which I was not coming into this program by any means, get comfortable with it. Your entire career outlook, career prospect, both during and after the program, is networking. It's not about what you know necessarily, it's about who you know.
I completely agree.
I did want to stress about like more on an AI front. We are a very AI centered program, and understanding and being AI literate, like Michael and Gleb were saying, cannot also stress that enough. However, AI is not there to replace all of your soft skills. So AI is definitely there to help with just straight up coding and things like that, but really hone your data analysis skills. And also, so like that just comes from be a good writer. If people nowadays see M dashes within your emails or your presentation, they're going to assume that AI wrote it. So just like focus really on just honing like your writing skills and your ability to translate really difficult and technologically heavy topics to an average day consumer. And that's what we're getting to do and work on in our capstone projects. And that is how we are able to build our careers, is essentially merging business with the really technical side and just being that bridge to like explaining those really technical concepts to people who kind of lack that background and knowledge. But yeah, please definitely focus on like even just presentation displays and outlooks. Like AI doesn't always do the best job with that, but understanding maybe break it out into like a three prong like sub areas, just because just psychologically we tend to think in areas of threes, and just kind of really understanding and honing those soft skills, because that's going to also make you really stand out in your interviews when you also are competing for these really technologically heavy roles against a bunch of students who also have a similar background as you.
Yeah, all those are great points to keep in mind coming into the program. I think coming in with a goal that you want for yourself is something that helped me a lot. I knew that coming into this program, what I wanted out of it, of course, the information, the connections, and all of that is great. But the main reason for me coming into the program was I wanted to get a job afterwards. You know, I wanted to be employed in a market where it was a lot more likely for me not to be. So, of course, things change, plans change, you change over the course of months and, meeting new people and learning more about yourself. But coming in with a sense of direction will drive a lot of the decisions that you make, a lot of your kind of motivation for you to get up every day and go to class and do your networking and prepare for networking events and apply to jobs and go through the interview processes. It all adds up, and doing it every day nonstop for at least your first 6 months, it's really, really exhausting. But if you, in your mind, you have your goal and like you know that every day you're getting one step closer, that keeps you driven and that keeps you moving forward and filled with a sense of purpose. And that sense of purpose can change, but try your hardest to come in with something so that you're not just kind of in the dark.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Well, listen, that concludes our panel. all of our questions, but we will have a little bit of a Q&A. So kind of like if anybody has any questions for a specific student, for Tasia, Alessandra, Michael, Gleb, you can put them in the chat right now. And then we'll kind of just do a little bit of Q&A. But yes, and we'll be in the chat though. I'm not going to unmute everybody. But it looks like we already have one. No, we don't. Just a thank you. You're welcome, Ashley. Thank you so much for joining.
I
But yeah, who's got
do.
questions?
I think somebody accidentally sent a direct
Oh,
question just to me, and we don't have the answer, so I'm going to ask it.
I got it
sure.
as well.
Please.
Mahir asked in the chat, is a part-time MSBA program available?
Good question. So the answer to that is no. We do require you to be a full-time student. So part-time is not an option, unfortunately. And it is fully in person.
Yeah, you're
It's
not
fun.
gonna want to part-time this program. You're gonna miss out on
Yeah,
all the cool swag.
yeah, getting all the
Plus, you
stuff.
just
That is true.
and you can't really part-time a constantly changing data program. You know what I mean?
Is my last slide up? Do we all
Yes.
see it?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What else? What else we got in the chat? All right. For Tasha, what MIS courses specifically gave you the most helpful skills that you find yourself applying the most to your project and coursework?
So for me, one of the courses that I took in undergrad that I think everyone has to take is SQL. It was one of the classes that I enjoyed the most with Professor Srinivasan. I use a lot of SQL for my internship, and I use it a lot for my capstone project as well. All of our code is built out in SQL. So that one was very helpful. Project management, of course, being a team lead, it kind of helps introduce you to the soft skills and the things that seem obvious that are important that you should keep it at the forefront of your mind. A lot of those concepts are introduced in that course as well.
Gracie says, how much technical coding knowledge do we need to have coming into the program? So I'll address this one. So, from an admissions standpoint, we do require everyone to have some sort of a foundational knowledge of Python, R, and SQL. We're not asking for it to be advanced. You don't have to know everything about it, but we do want you to have some sort of a foundational understanding of those three programming languages. So if you don't have experience and you do want to apply into the program, I would definitely encourage you, if you're a UGA student, there's some wonderful 1.5 credit kind of
Mhm.
courses, say, that you could take available to Terry students only. Or if you're not a Terry student or you're not even a UGA student, that's totally cool. We've got some great certifications you can seek out. I know there's like LinkedIn Learning, there's some certifications on Google, just displaying that you have made an effort to kind of get some foundational understanding of those programming languages.
And another great thing that the program offers once you've been accepted is we get boot camps to do over the summer, and we have a very long orientation process where they kind of review the boot camps and make sure that you have an understanding before you start your fall semester.
I will also build on that a little bit. What I was talking about earlier with the business analytics area of emphasis, they do for that, they require you to take some of these 1.5 credit hour courses. Like for me, I took, and it was fully remote, which helped out quite a bit as well. But I took two 1.5 credit hour courses for R, and that was sufficient for my application with a couple of additional little coding things that I had done. But I would say at a high level, you don't need extensive programming knowledge just to get admitted to the program. This program does a fantastic job of teaching you programming languages, Python, SQL at a high level. I think there's even a Java class. I'm not in it, but I believe I have some friends that are. So there are definitely avenues for you to learn once you're in the program.
All right, looks like we have another question. So, for someone who has a non-business analytics background, so in information technology, how does the program help those with a non-business analytics background? And then there's another question about the GRE. Is the GRE required? And what did you guys use to get the scores you wanted? So, I assume, did you use any study materials? So, does anybody want to touch on the first one in terms of, I guess, non-business analytics background? And if somebody has like an IT background, how about
I
that?
I don't think that you need any form of coding or technical background in order to be able to succeed in this program. I understand that the kind of contradicts a little bit about what the admissions staff is saying with you need to have a little bit of programming knowledge coming in. I think anybody can be top programming, right? Anybody can be top programming. And being honest, nowadays, knowing how to write Python code isn't as valuable as being able to understand what's coming out. What this program teaches you, it's not how to write SQL code. It's not how to write Python code. Anybody can learn that on YouTube or datacamp.com. What the program teaches you, that's the most valuable thing you get out of it, is critical thinking, right? How do databases work overall, right? How does it work? How does this connect to this? How can I get information from here and put it over here? And then when I'm looking at data, what does my boss care about? What matters? What is fluff and what is not fluff? How do I focus in and just looking at something? How do I hammer in and just from a quick glance be able to go, wait a minute, that's wrong. That's faulty and that needs to be investigated deep. That's what the program does, right? And so, sure, if you don't have a business analytics background, it might be a little bit tougher getting in and just understanding how Python works. But professors are really, really good, and especially for some of the intro classes, they will literally pull up like, here's how you download it, here's how you open it, here's how you run things, right? They will show you step by, and you can go ask them. They'll show you step by step how to do things. But overall, and I know I'm kind of ranting on here, but the critical thinking is the biggest thing that you get from this program. And it's something that you only are able to get through the projects, the work, the group work, the professors, and the class instruction that this does.
Yeah, and I'll build off that a little bit as well. Just as somebody like my background was finance, so I would actually say, addressing specifically you, Randolph, with information technology, you're probably in a better position than you think because those skills are somewhat transferable. There's definitely a learning curve. I fully agree with Gleb that you have to put in the work, but this program does a fantastic job of teaching you from the foundational level and then building up to a set, let's call it semi-advanced level. So you will gain the skills that you need to understand what you are doing through doing the program. Now, that does mean that you have to do it. We've talked a lot about AI, so you don't want to like just throw your coursework in AI and then get it to spit this stuff out. That's not how you learn. But if you actually do the work, engage with it, work with your teams, work on your projects, you're going to have almost everything you need to, I guess, to bring the joke back, to be dangerous with the kind of stuff that you're doing. And yeah, I fully agree with what Gleb is saying with regard to that.
Yeah, going off of what Michael was saying, I was a marketing undergrad here, and there's not a lot of marketing undergrads in the MSBA program. There's, I believe 2 of us, including myself, so we're definitely in the minority, and there's definitely a lot like, in marketing, there aren't a lot of technical skills that you gain, but like Michael was saying, I also did the business analytics emphasis, so that also helped bridge that gap a little bit, but also, it's really great also to, like, use your peers also as a tool. So figure out like what they're using, what and also like your professors as well, like how they are bettering their skills. And I know like I had professors introduce me to data camps and every once in a while, like if it's over Christmas break and you have nothing better to do for afternoon, do a LinkedIn learning or a data camp to help build up your skill set. Because coming from a major where we didn't really do much modeling or anything, it was very sales and digital marketing based. So there wasn't a lot of data analytics there, but it's really cool also seeing how you can create those bridges yourself. So when you're like in class, you can understand how this related to like a marketing principle that I learned in undergrad so that you're able to build a more comprehensive picture of how the whole business cycle works.
Awesome. And on the GRE front, so yes, so we do require either the GRE or GMAT. It's really entirely up to you
Mhm.
about what standardized tests you want to take. Both are still quantitative. The GMAT is obviously way more quant heavy, but we don't lead toward one or the other. So it is required. And did any of you kind of get a study material or?
Me personally, I sent a link in the chat, Greg Matt. That's what I used. It's
Mhm.
what I recommend to everyone. It is absolutely goated. It's $7.99 a month, so it's cheap and it's exceptional.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I took the GMAT, and if I'm not mistaken, don't quote me on this because it's been too long. I basically just, when I checked out with my GMAT, they gave me like this free packet of information. And what it included was just at a high level each section and some practice work, and then 2 full on practice GMAT tests that you could take as the actual test. And I did all of that. And that was sufficient for me to get the grade that I felt that I needed. However, I would encourage if that might not be enough. So if looking into external resources would definitely be valuable if you feel that you need it.
I just found free GMAT practice exams online. I think I did one. I don't recommend doing that. Please study for the exam. I think that don't stress about it though. I think that if you have a high GPA, you have a good internship coming up the summer before, you have good references, it carries more than you would think. I was also one of, I think, a few people that were interviewed for the program because I applied very late. I was actually interviewed by Laudan. So yeah, they're like, it's not 100% just based on the number, but study. Don't do what I did. It's not a good way to go about it. Just
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, we have another question. What did the summer before your MSB look like other than the boot camp?
Work. I believe it's actually one of the MSBA requirements is that you have to have that summer. I think it's this, that you have to have a summer job that summer going into the MSBA, or maybe it's the summer right before. But
Good question. So, in a perfect world, we'd love for you to also be in an internship before you begin the MSBA, even if you've already had one. I wouldn't say it's a hard requirement, but we do like to see it. It helps with no gaps in your resume.
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, and then the boot camps are fairly robust, so they will take up a decent chunk of your time to knock them out, but they would highly recommend just paying attention and actually doing them because the information in them is valuable as a foundation.
especially if you haven't coded before and you're coming from a
Yeah.
non-business analytics undergrad, those boot camps are going to be your actual foundation for those initial few classes in the program. So the boot camp does take up a good amount of time, especially if you haven't coded.
Also, the boot camps are a work at your own pace, which is really nice. So when you are interning, it's not like you have to get something done like on, let's say, July 7th at like 7 p.m. This is due. It's all due right before your orientation, which is really nice. And also, in like the boot camps, they do have like a like suggested schedule for you to follow. So then it gives you these benchmarks so that you kind of can see if you're on pace or not. And also what's really great is there are faculty members that are assigned to each of the different boot camps. So if you're ever stuck or you need any help, then you have a bunch of resources there to reach out to. And it's really manageable with a summer internship. I mean, if you just put a couple hours in on the weekends and maybe like an hour after work every once in a while if you want to keep your weekends free. I mean, it's definitely doable, but like Tasia and Michael and Gleb have been saying, if you don't have a coding background or like a super heavy like, business analytics background or data science background, take the boot camp seriously because they just help so much in a lot of our first semester classes.
We'll also say
Go ahead.
the summer before, have fun because the 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 majority of people come out of this program with a job, so you will be employed more likely than not um within a few months after graduation, and then you don't get summer. Enjoy your last summer. Yes, intern. Yes, do the boot camps, and yes, take them seriously, but go to the pool, go on a run, go walk in the park with your parents. I don't know, just have a good time, make some memories.
I will also, and I know that we're running out of time here a little bit, but to wrap it up, I will give a boot camp horror story. So I would highly encourage following those schedules. I did not. I got very wrapped up in work. And one boot camp we had Python, I remember I checked on it and I went, oh, I have 2 days to do this. And I literally was like, all right, I'm going to do it in the morning. I couldn't sleep. I stayed up all night doing it. And it was not, don't do that. That's a horror story, not advice, but I would, like these guys have been saying, try and find the balance. But I would highly encourage those schedules are there for a reason. It's to make it manageable for you so that you can do everything that you want to do that summer.
Dude, the Python boot camp is long too. That's impressive.
Yeah,
That
no,
one's
it was
long.
not fun.
All right. Thank you. So, yes, we are at time. So, I will leave you all with just a couple more little kind of upcoming stuff we've got going on. So, if you want to talk to an ambassador, scan this QR code. It'll take you to our ambassador page. You can connect with anybody on that page. If you have admissions related questions, reach out to us, msba@uga.edu. And we have our round 3 application deadline coming up. It's our last deadline. It is April 15th. So if you are thinking about applying, if you are in the process of applying, please apply because there's still plenty of time. And I have 2 upcoming sessions. If you want to learn more about the actual MSBA program, it's a virtual information session. It is March 25th. So it's actually a week from today from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. So from 12 to 1, it is virtual. And then I'm hosting another session. It is in person. We might pivot to virtual, but for now it is in person. It's an application tips and tricks. It is April 2nd from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. So definitely stay engaged. I want to give a big thank you to our wonderful MSBA students. Thank you so much. I know nobody can unmute themselves, but I will clap in real time. I
I'll
hope
clap
you
for you
all,
3.
yes,
Yeah.
everyone
Oh,
clap for
thank
each
I'll
other.
clap for you guys.
Clap for each other. Thank you so, so much. You all have been so wonderful. I'm so grateful for you all. And it's been a pleasure working with you guys. And I hope to see everyone apply and stay engaged. And if you need us, you know where to find us. But thank you again for joining.
Reach
Right.
out on LinkedIn if y'all needed.
Yeah,
Yes, please
LinkedIn
Same.
would be
do.
great.
We
Yep.
all are very excited about this program. We'd love to talk to all of you guys. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us via that link or on LinkedIn for coffee chats. I've already had a couple with some prospective students that have both now applied and I believe got in.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy and excited to talk with you guys if you have any other questions, as I'm sure the rest of these guys are as well. So thank you guys for joining us and letting us
Sounds
rant about
good.
the program.
Thank you all again. Have a good evening. Bye, everyone.